with them, but I kind of tend to pull from multiple diets and kind of apply them to my own and kind of create my own. Maybe I'll have to patent it and call it the Josh McMullen diet or something more catchy like keto and call it. Now I was thinking Mick diet, but that's probably inappropriate, so I'm not going to say that. A quick guide real quick on some of the diets I've tried. The first one, I've mentioned it several times, is the keto diet. So the keto diet is basically a high fat with some adequate protein amounts and a low carb. So the low carb is going to be a key for a lot of diets. Is cutting out your breads, your grains, your pastas, and all the delicious things. So basically, you're cutting out your fazoli's in your Olive Garden. And in that, basically, you're trying to... The best way I know how to explain it is you're almost trying to change your fuel source, right? So a lot of us are ran on carbs and sugars, right? That's the fuel energy that most of us are on. When really, if you cut out the carbs or make it a very, very low carb, very low, low sugars, that your body kind of switches its fuel and your energy from carbs and sugars and kind of switches it to fat, which I think is why you see a lot of keto people have a lot of weight loss. I think that's where you kind of hear of the keto flu and the kind of the people getting sick on keto, or just having some reactions or some weird symptoms. I think because your body is literally probably shifting its energy cells that it's never ran on, right? Like never ran on the fat energy, and I think your body has a tendency to kind of be lazy and likes to do things, keep kind of going with the status quo. So I think why switching over to a keto diet, you kind of hear I tried keto and I didn't like it, I got sick on it, or you hear some weird side effects is because of that. It's your body's changing probably for the first time in its life. So keto has a lot of great benefits. Switching to low carbs and low sugars, I'm going to cover it probably multiple times here, but very healthy, very key, I think, in just general is watching the sugars and carbs that you take. Whether or not you're doing a low carb diet or not, just having that element into any diet is going to be beneficial. So that's a popular one a lot of people see is keto. Again, it works, I think, because, again, it's burning a lot of fat and people see a lot of results quickly. Similar to keto is the Atkins diet. Probably the biggest key difference is probably the amount of protein from the two. I would also say that Atkins seems to be a little bit more lower on the fat. Like it's not as high on the fat intake as the keto diet is, but then it's also kind of emphasizes more of the protein. And by the way, if I get any of this wrong, there's some dietitian out there, some nutritionist is like, well, this guy doesn't know what he talks about. Again, I'm doing this not as an expert. I'm doing this as more of what's worked for me, what some of the quick differences are, because there's a lot of information out there. So Atkins, very similar to keto. They're probably a little bit harder to stick to, just because it has I at least when I've tried to actually do Atkins, and that's not really for me. What I do like about Atkins though is their shakes, so I'll get more into that later. So Atkins is going to be very similar to keto, also kind of in that same low carb family, right? You've got Atkins, keto, and the other one's Paleo, which if you've heard of that one, it's kind of that caveman diet, the hunt, like basically. If you think back to our ancestors, what the original hunter-gatherers would have ate, it would have been keto. It would have been paleo, which is natural meat, natural vegetables, fruit, basically whatever they would have stumbled on, right, is what they would have ate. Which is great because it cuts out your grains, it cuts out dairy, it cuts out sugar, and it cuts out processed foods. So I think that's the biggest difference between paleo, keto, and Atkins is this is going to completely cut out dairy, where the other two kind of, have worked in dairy, whether with cheese or whether with other elements of, cream or whole milk or whatever. There's an actual guide you can follow on there, like heavy whipping cream, I think is the keto one that they really like. But while paleo completely cuts that out, like peanut butter is another one that's pretty big in the other world, while paleo, again, cuts it out. So the other one is the processed foods element of this. Is like basically if it comes in a wrapper, comes in a package, probably not healthy for you. Again, good tip for most people: stay away from, the packaged meats, packaged foods, and try to find something that's more organic and more natural and healthy. Paleo, it would be very tough to. I tried it. I think I did it for like 2 months. The problem is it's expensive because you're trying to get more organic, healthier. But it is tough because it cuts out dairy, cuts out sugar, cuts out processed foods and grains, and you're really limited to what you can eat. Some of the websites might say it's more because you can get your fruits and vegetables and the meats, but I found it a little bit more tough just in terms of shopping for it, especially if you're in small town America. They're not going to be as wide open with some of their purchasing options like big cities and stuff. So that would be just probably the biggest thing with paleo is actual access to being able to do paleo. But again, all three of those are kind of in the low carb, adequate to high protein diet. So the big thing is cut out your sugars, cut out your carbs. If you're gonna lump them all together and sum them up, and what you should take away from those, cut out your sugars and cut out your carbs. I think that's so key to everything is just if you're able to cut out your junk food, right? Your breads, your junk foods, your buns, your the pastas, all this stuff. Because again, you're not burning that stuff off. If you're out there and you run marathons, you run a lot, and you're probably fine. If you're exercising, then carbs and stuff like that, probably not that big of a deal. Like if you look at some of like Eddie Strongman, right? That is a Netflix documentary out there of the strongmen. And they can eat, like 7,000 calories a day. Michael Phelps can eat, 8 to 10,000 calories a day when he was training. Like, yeah, if you're a machine out there, you can eat whatever you want. None of this matters. But if you're trying to lose weight like me, right, that like what you put in your body is extremely key into how you're going to feel, how you're going to function, and if you're going to have success with weight loss. So I think that's key. If you're watching your calories, cutting out your sugars, cutting out candy, pop, Gatorade. Gatorade probably would only be beneficial if you're doing Gatorade Zero. And again, if you're exercising moderately to intensely, then you can add in the Gatorade. Or do maybe like a liquid IV would be another really good one to kind of supplement your electrolytes and kind of get that back. But for the most part, if you're just sitting around, don't drink Gatorade, don't drink pop or your sugar. Coffee's a sneaky one, especially if you're going to Starbucks and getting that, venti caramel macchiato, or getting what I like. I think I like the vanilla mochas, which are out of this world, but completely packed with sugar and calories. And that's just something, you drink one or two of them, and game over. That's just something you just don't even think of. It does a sneak attack on you. So just kind of watch out for the sugars, watch out for your carbs, watch out for the calories. So, again, yeah, a lot of those diets are similar out there. Though I haven't really do anything with Weight Watchers. If you look at a lot of those websites, they typically rank Weight Watchers in the top 5, just because again it focuses more on healthy eating, better portion sizes, and they grade things to eat. So Weight Watchers seems to be the one that you're going to see always is the most success in terms of weight loss and in terms of success and long-term implementation. So Weight Watchers is key. I just never did that one. So the other diet I mentioned was intermittent fasting. So that's the other one probably I'd say is another key element that I've added. I kind of combined intermittent fasting with elements of the keto and some of the other Atkins diets that I've done. So basically what intermittent fasting is you're reducing your window of eating, right? So fasting is taking a break from eating food for a certain period of time. There's multiple ways to intermittent fast. The method I use is called the 16-8 method, which basically you fast for at least 16 hours a day. So whether you eat at noon and you eat until 8, and then from 8 p.m. until noon the next day, you don't eat at all, right? You don't break your fast, so no calories. I guess if black coffee counts as breaking your fast, I've read mixed things on that. If black coffee counts, then yeah, technically I break my fast when I wake up, but I don't put anything in my coffee and I don't take anything else. So I don't count it. So, so basically, if you're going to do intermittent fasting, right, you're skipping breakfast. If you really think about it throughout your day, if you skip breakfast, you're going to automatically change your eating window. So eat lunch, eat dinner, and don't supplement your breakfast calories into dinner or a snack or or your lunch. If you just cut out breakfast, one, your stomach size is going to shrink, but also you're just going to feel a little bit better throughout the day, not going to feel as bloated, and you're going to be able to cut those calories a little bit quicker. So that's a big pro tip I have is intermittent fasting, cut out breakfast. The other tip, intermittent fasting is eat, stop, eat. I've not done this one. Basically, it involves fasting for 24 hours once or twice a week. For example, by not eating from dinner one day to eating dinner the next. Found that on Google. That sounds horrible. I wouldn't recommend that. I don't know if you guys have ever tried to eat for 24 hours, but I'm a complete bear if by the end of my window. I don't know if going another 8 hours would be possible. I mean, it might be, but man, I don't know. I don't think I could do that. That sounds like a lot of trouble. The other one even sounds just as tough, is eating 500 to 600 calories on 2 non-consecutive days of the week, but then eating completely normal the other 5. That's called the 5-2 method. Again, not a horrible method. Okay, maybe a little bit better than the not eating for 24 hours, but I think the 16-8 is more, again, talking long-term, what you can implement in your life continually. I would suggest doing the 16-8 method, right? Just cutting out breakfast, or if you're not a big dinner person, right? Let's say you love breakfast. Fine, add breakfast into that. Cut out dinner then. So play with your 8-hour window that you have on the 16-8. I typically do anywhere from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. For my eating window. Just kind of depends on when I'm ready to eat. If I've had maybe a second cup of coffee, I might push my window to 1, right? And then to do 1 to 9. So just make sure you're getting that 16 hours in between. I also, in that time, I drink a lot of water. I think that's another key part is hydration. So cutting out your sugars, especially out of your coffees and drinks, but also adding water is very key. It helps you kind of cut the hunger. It helps you stay, I guess, really more focused and really, especially if you do it right out of the gate. Like if you wake up in the morning, I took this from the Tom Brady or the TB12 method. I'm not a big Tom Brady fan. And if you know, if Indiana people, no one's really a big Tom Brady fan. A lot of success, but I just think a lot of Indiana people just not a fan of it. But his diet works. He's playing. Until he's 43 in the NFL, which is unheard of. So something works. So I looked at what the TB12 method is. Kind of emphasizes a lot of what we talked about of no sugars and carbs, and very big key on organic food. But the one thing that really stuck out to me that I took is hydration. Specifically in the morning, which is where he drinks 20 to 30 ounces of water when he first wakes up. I really like that. Really think like hydrating, it kind of just sounds like a nice, refreshing way to start your day, to kick off your day, is to hydrate first thing in the morning and kind of set the tempo right for the day. And they also talked about cutting out table salt, and switching to pink Himalayan salt. So I took that tip as well. Surprisingly delicious, and I'm never going back to table salt ever again. A little bit more expensive, but the way that one article read said table salt was basically the cigarettes. What we're going to be talking about in 20 years is cigarettes and how it's killing us. Maybe that was just a doom and gloom article, but I bought into it, so maybe it worked. If you kind of look at the diet, I've talked about intermittent fasting, keto, paleo, Atkins. There's a lot of other diets out there. I'd recommend doing your own research and seeing what's going to work for you. But for me, cutting out carbs, cutting out sugar seemed to be the biggest way I cut my weight. So if you kind of combine everything I do, I have a nice blend of intermittent fasting, low carb, low sugar diet that emphasizes protein and hydration. So again, usually eating window can be anywhere from 11 to noon to 1. And I also then try to exercise on that fasted state. So now if I exercise, I might change my window a little bit.